Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So, how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back to Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and we are on episode 231. And my goal today is to convince you that you should have a business. Every professional should have a business, even if it's a side business. And I'm going to tell you why I think that. So even if you're like, I don't think that I need or want a business, or maybe you're like, I have always wanted a business, but didn't really know how to make that happen. I think you're going to learn a lot today. And it may surprise you what I'm going to say, but I genuinely believe that every professional would benefit from having their own business. So I have 5 reasons why I think that, and I'm going to share each and every one of them with you today. But before we get to that, as a reminder, if you listened last week, you already know I have an upcoming Ask Me Anything episode where you ask me anything and I answer. This next Ask Me Anything episode, though, is going to have a very specific topic, and that is around building a business, which is going to be similar to today. So if you have any questions, whether it's about this episode or anything related to starting a business, growing a business, all you have to do is go to heatherjoyhubbard.com/ask me anything. And the form, there's only 2 questions on the form. Number 1 is, what's your question? And number 2, what's your name? And that's where you can either choose to put your first name. I guess you could make up a name, or you can do like a Dear Abby type, name. So lonely and confused or whatever, so that I can actually answer. And you'll be like, oh, that's my question. So that's it. That's all. Okay. Why do you need a business? Number 1 is to make some extra money, to have some additional income. And you might already be a high earner. And so you might be thinking, I don't really need more money. No, but would you like to have more money? Would it be enjoyable to have more money? And do you have control over the additional money that you make at your company? So you might be an employee where the amount of money you make depends on raises or promotions. Maybe it is, lockstep. Maybe you don't get it at all. Like you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get it. Or if you do get it, it's like a certain amount, but there's like a cap each year of how much extra money you can make. Even if you are a partner in a service-based business. So if you're an accountant or if you're a lawyer, even if you're a physician, right? If you're doing something like that, you're not technically an employee and you're supposed to bring in business and you get paid for that. But unless you are truly being paid for what you bring in, then you don't have control over how much extra money you can make. Because it's generally, you look back, it's by a compensation committee or someone in your firm, and they're looking at how much money you brought in, but there's always other partners. So there's the whole credit thing. And then you could make more money compensation wise. You could make a bonus, but you're waiting on someone else to tell you whether you're going to get that. And then part of what plays into that is, how did the company do as a whole that year? Were they making investments in other things? So you don't really have control over that. So you might get paid well and you would like more money, but even if you generate more money or do a better job for the company that you work for, there's no guarantee that you're going to make more money unless you're on a formula and what you bring in, you know exactly what you're getting out. That would be a little bit of a different situation. Similar to if you own your own business with your expertise, right? I'm talking to people who are truly with a company. Like there's a lot of you, and you, even if you're in charge, like in the sense that you're a manager or a leader, If you don't have 100% control over how much money you're making in any given year, then this is what I'm talking about. All right. This is what I'm talking about with extra income. Here's how a business works if you have your own business. You bring in revenue, you have expenses, and then at the end of that, you get profit and you are in charge. So you can pay yourself that profit or you can invest it back in the business. But you get to decide. There's no committee. No one else is deciding. Like you were 100% in charge of the income. So if you like the idea of making extra money, that is a great reason to have your own business, even if it is on the side. The second reason why I think every professional should have a business is because it offers tax deductions. I considered whether or not to put this in here because, of course, I'm a trained lawyer. I am not a tax lawyer. Never was. Never was I a tax lawyer. I'm also not an accountant, okay? So I'm not giving you tax advice. I can only share anecdotally from experience and from talking to others that I know, as well as talking to my accountants and others' accountants. So you're going to have to check with your own accountant or tax attorney, whoever you're talking to for your tax advice. But if you are an employee or you're in a partnership, you often can't take tax deductions for, like if you're getting a K-1, like you can't take tax deductions for things that you choose to do. So you are relying upon your company to approve things for you. And maybe you work for a great company who approves every request you make and they reimburse you for everything. Fabulous. There's generally a lot of bureaucracy and red tape in politics around stuff. And sometimes like you don't even feel comfortable submitting something for reimbursement or approval. I don't know how many times I have worked with professionals in my growth accelerator for their service-based businesses where they're like, I don't want my company or my firm to know that I need help with this. And I'm like, they would love to know that you're invested in yourself. But, right. So they won't go get reimbursed for it. They won't submit it. Others are happy to. But like I've seen this come up. So some people just don't even go. They either think they're going to say no or like they don't want them to know they're doing it. If you have your own company, and I'm not necessarily saying, I'll get into this in a little bit, but I'm not necessarily saying like if you're a lawyer, if you're a partner in a law firm, you're clearly not going to start a business offering legal services. That's probably prohibited in your partnership agreement. I'm talking about you would start a business based on some other expertise that you have, and I guarantee that you have it. Okay. So this would not be competitive or in any way taking away from the business that you have where you're supposed to be generating. Could it still annoy or piss off the people you work with? Yeah, partly because you work for a lot of men who are, you know what's, and they just like to keep people down. That's a different issue. Okay. But when you have your own business, if you were going to go, if you wanted to invest to learn something, if you wanted to go to a particular conference, if you were wanting to take a course or something like that, it allows you to deduct that. Now, it could end up helping you in both, right? So if you take something related to marketing or sales and it's going to help in this business, it's naturally going to help you over here in the company or the business that you work for as well. But you can take that deduction over here and then you don't have to worry about the reimbursement. Now, sometimes, right, like you're doing it over here and it would naturally help over there and they're going to reimburse it. Great, let them do that. Please get the reimbursement. Far better than a tax deduction. But it's so interesting to me. My entrepreneurs, when they invest in anything that I'm doing, like it's a very different conversation. Like they're just willing to invest in themselves. And by the way, tax deductions, like even with that, it still impacts profit. But at the end of the day, entrepreneurs just have an entrepreneurial spirit and an entrepreneurial mind, and they're willing to invest. People who tend to be employees or are used to their companies reimbursing things will have a million excuses as to why they can't do that themselves. They're like, well, my company can't reimburse it, therefore I can't do it. And it's like, well, it's your life. You could still invest in yourself. But it's a mindset issue, right? Um, so one of the things that you can actually do if you're the kind of person who's always like, well, I'll only do it if my company will reimburse me. If you have your own business, you can do those types of things and you don't have to worry about that reimbursement. You can just take the deduction. This is actually very common for physicians. Most physicians have a side business, they have a consulting business, partly because that is how pharmaceutical companies and others, I know this is probably going to piss a lot of people off when they find this out. They're going to be like, what? So, pharmaceutical companies and others can invite doctors to come speak at their conferences and they can pay them directly because they're not paying them as the doctors, they're paying them as the speaker, the consultant. So it's a thing. People in other professions are already doing it. You have expertise. You can totally be speaking. You can totally be a consultant. And it doesn't have to be full time and be on the side, but you can make extra money. And it can give you, again, some ability to have expenses that may not be able to get reimbursed by your other company, but it allows you to spend it in that way. Again, consult with your tax attorney or your accountant. Not tax advice, just sharing anecdotally what has worked for a lot of people in the past that I know of. Okay. Number 3, it gives you options. It gives you options. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed. I have had so many conversations over the years with very powerful people who will lose a line of business within their company, or there was some kind of acquisition or some kind of merger, leadership changes, and then suddenly you either are out of a job because there's a layoff, or they've asked you to leave, or your position's going to change, or it's going to be moved. And so, no matter how secure you think that your position is, regardless of how high up you are, things can change and you won't have control. You can always go and to another company. You can just deal with, what's been given you. But it's also just nice to know that you have options, whether it is just like in the interim. So it might be, okay, this isn't working out because I'm either choosing to leave or I'm being forced to leave. And yes, I'm going to go try to find this other thing, but I don't have to stress in the meantime because I actually have another business that I can do that brings in some income that I know about, or you could even ramp that up, right? And have more income. So it just lets you have more options and stability, something kind of on the back burner so that you're never really in that like rut or in that crisis situation. Also, a lot of people are thinking of retirement. Depending on your age, you might be starting to think about, well, what's next for me? And so when you have some kind of business on the side, as you go to retire, now that may not be what you want to do. You may want to truly retire, but most people I know who are retiring because we're just like high achievers and we love to do things, we're not truly retiring. We are finding other things to do. And so obviously that's something that you can do in retirement. You can figure that out, you can sort it out, but you could also do it now while you have the contacts, you have the reputation, you have the leverage. So you're starting it on the side. And it gives you, again, that option that it might be something that you want to do more of, or it simply provides a certain level of income where you don't have to make up what you were making before, but it's enough. It's enough. The other piece on options is you may find that it just gives you, like, as you start to do it, you might be like, I'm really good at this. It's actually paying me better than I thought. And it gives me so much more freedom and autonomy and flexibility. Now, it may not, depending on what you're doing, but it might. And then that may just give you the option of, well, do I want to go ahead and leave and do that full time? Or do I want to take some of the things I'm learning from this side business and try to apply it to the thing that I've just got really bad habits around, like your job, your, and it's like, well, maybe I can do this differently. And it allows that to be more efficient. So there's just a lot of ways that it just is going to open up your mind and provide more perspective. The fourth reason why I think every professional needs a business is because it helps you avoid boredom. If you recall, this was a long time ago, so it depends on how long you've been listening to Hustle and Flow. But way back in the day, I did an episode called Burnout versus Boredom. And I remember getting so many comments on that when people were like, huh, I never thought of that. Let's see, I wrote that down. It's episode 82. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Episode 82. I don't know about you, but the more I do something, the better I get at something, the more likely I am to actually get bored. That doesn't mean that you're not working all the time. It doesn't mean that you don't have a million to-dos. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying bored as in like I have nothing to do. I'm talking about I'm bored doing this work. I definitely was getting a little bit to that place in my career when I was still practicing law. And part of having the business is I can switch things up. I can change things in ways where I never feel bored. You know, what is the saying? I feel like they say that if it takes 10 years to become an expert in something, but I also feel like once you become that expert, then it's like, well, now I'm kind of bored because you can do it in your sleep and it's just not as interesting, which has a lot of perks to it. But also, I do think that people get bored in their jobs and they're amazing jobs and don't realize that if they had something on the side that was really interesting and they were learning, and it's like, right, you're just in that like kind of like passion place in that sense, that can help alleviate the boredom in the business that you're in the corporation that you're in, because you have this outlet and it can create a lot of joy and a lot of fun. And as I said, it's like helping you learn new things and get outside your comfort zone. And so over here, like you're going to want to be more efficient because you're like, I want to get this done so that I can come over here and focus on this like passion project, this side thing. And the corporate piece, it's actually like you're not going to be doing worse. Like I said, you're going to be more efficient. You're going to be more productive, and you're probably going to learn some new things that allows you to even be better at what you're doing. But it can absolutely address the issue of once you get to a certain level in your profession, you might be getting bored. And so it gives you something else to do without having to go on a sabbatical or quit or something like that. Okay. Speaking of passion, that is number 5. That is number 5. Passion, purpose, legacy. The people who listen to my podcast tend to be high achieving professional women who are making a difference in the world. They make a difference by showing up in spaces that they have historically been excluded from. They are showing up in spaces and using their voice. They are showing up in spaces and mentoring and bringing up the women under them. And it's not just women, right? I attract a crowd that believes in equity, a crowd that believes in inclusion and really wants everyone to have a seat at the table and understands that the reason why everyone does not have a seat at the table now has nothing to do with incompetence. What it has to do with is systems and access and being supported. And so I know that you're already doing this in a million different ways because I know you. I know you. I work with you. I talk to you. I know you. And so knowing that you are passionate about that, knowing that you want to leave a legacy means that you have a lot of skills and expertise and wisdom unrelated to your profession, like the actual job that you do in the profession, that is actually needed. It is very much needed in workplaces and all around the world. And so having an outlet to be able to share that is a wonderful thing to do. When I was still practicing law, I used to I used to always joke and tell everyone that I was going to start my own consulting company. And it had a name. It was called Red Wolf Consulting. And we literally would be in meetings with consultants or speakers or whatever else. And like they would be texting me, what does Red Wolf Consulting say about this? So, and also, I feel like a lot of times people already speak, but we also know, especially women, we are the ones who will speak. We are the ones who are giving back. We're leading these things and we're not paid for it. It's like in the legal world, we would call that non billable. We would call it leadership, but you weren't really paid for it. And it was not seen as valuable within the company. Let me tell you what, other companies pay for that. Other companies do see it as valuable, but sometimes you got to sell it outside of your own company, right? For them to actually see the value. So the same company who's not going to value what you're doing will pay someone else to come in and do it. Because, not always thinking up here, people. And part of it's just depression. So that is another way to really leave a mark and get paid for the work that you do, to be paid for the wisdom that you have and the experience that you have. This is not non billable. This is not admin. This is very valuable and you need to be paid for it. So, for me, like the most common ways that you could actually start a side business that really would not require that much effort would be speaking. If you're already speaking, if there are things that you're knowledgeable about, and that even could be with your profession. Depending on your company and depending on your partnership agreement, you may or may not be able to do that. Again, it's actually very common within the physician world, but you could even be speaking on like legal topics or other topics, as long as, again, it's not a direct violation of your own company's how they do things. You could still be paid for that. I have noticed that like so many people want free speakers, and part of why they want free speakers is because there's so many available. Because people are working for companies and they don't stop to realize you could be getting paid for that. Like you are providing free labor. So speaking is a great way to do something. Consulting, coaching. I know we love to mentor, but you can also mentor outside of your company because there's a lot of people who don't, maybe they don't know you. They're looking to hire someone and maybe they don't want to bother you or bother others because they understand that women, especially at the top, are already like the demands are wild. And so they want to compensate you, but don't know how to compensate you. Well, if you don't offer that as something on the side that you can pay them for, they may not even come to you. So that doesn't mean that you can't ever mentor for free, especially within your own company. But for those outside, they may want coaching, they may want mentoring, and having access to pay you to do that is something that they may really want to do and would love to do. And that's even within the own profession. But some people will have a business. Like let's say you were a lawyer and you have your own law firm, right? You're already an entrepreneur. Well, you still might have other ways to bring in extra money through other things that might be in something separate than the law firm. Like you might have another business set up. And that could be consulting. And you might even do that for similar clients. So I'm thinking of someone I used to work with. She actually had an employment firm, but she ended up offering consulting and coaching services to companies related to employee disputes or like if you had someone in the company who was maybe a bit of a problem child and they didn't really know what to do with them, but they were trying to get them help or trying to get them coaching, or maybe there was a manager and an employee or two managers who weren't getting along. And so the employment attorney was able to go in and start offering that service. It allowed her to have extra income and because she loved doing the work and because she actually had that employment law background, it made her be able to charge higher prices because she wasn't just a negotiator or facilitator or HR. She was bringing something more to the table. So it was more valuable. So I just think there's so many ways to package your services that it's a natural extension. I'm not talking about like something brand new, like you're already doing it. It's just monetizing it. It's just monetizing it. So I already work with several professionals who are doing this on the side, and it is so much fun. I I love working with professionals because we have the same mind. We're that type A high achiever, but we get things done. We go do it. We don't just talk about doing it, like we go do it. And I just love helping people with their strategy. And that is one of my gifts is I can help people see their $1 million ideas. I can see them how to put it together so that it's easy and it flows and it's not a whole big thing. So I am hosting a free webinar. And in that free webinar, I am going to help you identify what you might actually want to do in your side business and give you actionable steps on how you would actually get that set up and started if you wanted to. One, it's free. It's a free webinar. Two, you don't have to do anything with it after you attend, but I think you're going to love it. I think you're going to get a lot of great ideas and you are going to see a lot of possibility and hopefully get excited. And then maybe if you get going and want to work with me, we can work together on your business. All right. So here's what you're going to do if you want to attend the webinar. Go to heatherjoyhubbard.com/webinar. It's that easy. Again, it will be in the show notes. Two things you can do. One is submit a question for the next Ask Me Anything episode, heatherjoyhubbard.com/ask me anything. And or you can come to the free webinar. It is going to be on, I believe it's Friday, February 28th, but go ahead and get signed up now. Get it in your calendar. It is heatherjoyhubbard.com/webinar. All right. Have a great day, and I hope I have your wheels spinning. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.